I'm Dr. Seda Ebrahimi, the founder and director of Cambridge Eating Disorder Center. I'd like to welcome all of you to our event today honoring National Eating Disorders Awareness Week. We have a great program planned for you today, and that includes a panel consisting of a recovered individual, a father, a dietitian, a psychiatrist, and a psychologist. Following the panel discussion, you will have the opportunity to tour the Journey Through an Eating Disorder, which is a powerful media display prepared by our patients and staff at CEDC of New Hampshire. I think you saw all the things being covered. They've done tremendous work, a lot of effort, and a lot of thoughtfulness has gone into giving you a feel of what an eating disorder is and what the recovery looks like, and also what a serious illness this is. And it is intended to take you into the heart of an eating disorder and the experience of seeking recovery. It is estimated that more than 30 million individuals, I'll start again. It is estimated that more than 30 million individuals suffer from eating disorders in the United States alone. It is estimated that more than 30 million individuals suffer from eating disorders in the United States alone. Eating disorders impact men and women, young and old, and all the races and economic classes. They are serious and life-threatening illnesses. In fact, eating disorders have the highest mortality rate of any psychiatric illness. They have a wide-reaching impact, threatening a person's health, emotional well-being, confidence, as well as their families and friends. The good news is that with proper treatment, they are treatable. Individuals can fully recover from this devastating psychiatric illness. Eating disorders community has been seeking to educate our elected leaders from across the country about eating disorders and to ask for their support of important legislation that would have a positive impact on prevention and recovery from eating disorders. Anna Weston Act is an initiative that would help in the prevention of eating disorders by training health and school professionals on the early identification and intervention, will provide better treatment resources and access to care, and will shed light on the harmful effects of altered body images in advertising. I am honored to have Senator Kelly Ayotte join us today. She has provided the eating disorder community outstanding support by being one of the original co-sponsors of the Anna Weston Act. Kelly Ayotte was first elected to the Senate in 2010 and has distinguished herself as an independent and pragmatic leader who works across the party lines. She is considered to be one of the most bipartisan senators, and Anna Weston Act is a good example of this. She has also championed other legislation aiming to improve mental health, first aid training and suicide prevention programs. It should be noted that she was named the 2014 Legislator of the Year by the National Council for Behavioral Health. It is my honor today to welcome Senator Ayotte to the podium.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Dr. Ebrahimi for your leadership on this important issue. And I also want to thank Dr. Monica Ostroff as well for your leadership of this center. This is so important to have the Cambridge Eating Disorder Center here in New Hampshire because we do need this center here. Because as the doctor has said, 30,000 people nationally, but I can assure you thousands in New Hampshire who suffer from eating disorders and need not only awareness and prevention, but access to treatment. So we're grateful for what you are doing here today. And as Dr. Ebrahimi has said, one of the issues that we're working on nationally is a law that has actually been around for too long, and I hope now we can get this passed. and that is the Anna Weston Act. And the Anna Weston Act is a bill that was introduced this year by myself, a Democrat from Minnesota, Amy Klobuchar, and then also Shelley Capito, who is a Republican senator from West Virginia, and Tammy Baldwin, who is a Democrat senator from Wisconsin. The goal of the bill is to bring greater awareness to the dangers and impact of eating disorders, and most importantly, to ensure better access to treatment for those who are suffering with eating disorders, including thousands here in the state of New Hampshire. And after Senator Klobuchar and I introduced the bill this summer, Anna Weston, the bill is named after Anna Weston, who is a young woman who took her life as a result of suffering for years from an eating disorder. And Anna Weston's mom, Kitty, wrote to me and said, "I have very mixed feelings about having a bill named after my daughter, who died from a treatable illness. I'm sad and write this through tears because I wish more than anything that Anna were here, and I miss her every single day." Last week was the 16th anniversary of Anna's passing, and we all wish that Anna could be with us today. But one thing that we do know, and one thing I really admire her mother Kitty for doing, she has really turned her passion for losing her daughter into making sure that nobody else loses a child over an eating disorder, because eating disorders are very treatable. They are very, very serious illness, but they are treatable, and that's why we're here today, to talk about how we can all work together to make sure that those who are suffering get the support that they need, and they get the treatment so that they can go on and lead quality lives. So sadly, one of the reasons Anna lost her life was because of the way the insurance companies actually treated the eating disorder. They wouldn't cover the cost of what was needed for Anna's treatment at the time. And this is something that, as a result, in 2008, there was an important bill passed, which is called the Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act. Now, mental health parity essentially says that if you suffer from a mental illness, then it's no different than if I have cancer or if I break my arm, that I need treatment for a mental illness as much as I need treatment for a physical illness. The same thing that is added to this law is for addiction. So as we look at what's happening in our state, for example, right now with heroin, addiction was added as well, because if you have a substance use disorder, you need treatment as well, just as if you had a physical injury. But unfortunately, the parity law was the idea of making sure everyone can have equal treatment for these kinds of illnesses. But there's still more than we need to go to make sure that this law is properly and fully enforced. And so this is something I've been working on also. We've written the Government Accountability Office and also the Department of Health and Human Services. I've written all 5 major insurance companies, making sure that this law is properly implemented and enforced, because in this context, in the context of mental illness and eating disorder, other types of illnesses, or if you suffer from substance use disorder and you're struggling with addiction, it's critical, if you do have insurance, that the insurance companies enforce this. And this is something that we're working on. And this bill will very much clarify and make sure that treatment is accessible for those who are suffering from an eating disorder, and especially residential treatment, which for some is very, very critical. No other family should have to go through what Kitty went through. And so this is what this is all about. And so what we're doing right now as a group, those of us who have led the introduction of this bill, we're pushing the Senate Health Committee, or the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, which is where this bill has jurisdiction. They are about to take up a series of mental health legislation, and we're pushing to have the Anna Weston Act included in that legislation. And so I'm hopeful that this is something that the Senate will take up. They will see the common sense wisdom of it. And I've urged my colleagues that I work with, ask people in your community. Find out what's happening in your state about the number of people who are suffering from eating disorders. And I think if you don't think this is a problem, you'll be surprised. You will be surprised at how many are struggling with this. So this is the other issue that I want to make you aware of that's important to understand about eating disorders. I also serve on the Armed Services Committee. And interesting research that has been done on eating disorders is that, in fact, research has found that up to 30% of female cadets are suffering from an eating disorder, and 34% of active duty females scored higher risk for an eating disorder than even in the average population. So on the Armed Services Committee, Senator Klobuchar and I are also working together to ask the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee. There is research that is done through the Department of Defense's peer-reviewed medical research program. We're asking them to take up this issue as well to understand why in particular our women who serve in uniform are suffering at a greater rate from eating disorders, and we want to make sure that as we do awareness, that we, of course, make sure that we address those who are defending the nation. And now every combat billet has been opened up to women in the military, so this is going to be even more important. And I think all of you in this room are probably aware, but we have incredible women that serve in our military every day. In fact, after this, I am going to a deployment ceremony for our Army National Guard, who are deploying to the Middle East, and there are many women serving in that unit as well. So I thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm so glad that we have this center here, because you're doing incredibly important work, and hopefully we can make sure we get the Anna Weston Act passed, that the law is enforced, but also that anyone who struggles with an eating disorder has access to treatment, because we know you can recover. But you need the treatment and you need the support, and we want people who are in the shadows also struggling to be aware of this and to come out and know that they'll have support, because often I remember I had a friend in high school who had an eating disorder, and unfortunately it was something that happened, behind closed doors, and we all thought about it, but we didn't know what to do about it. And what we needed to do was get her help. And I look back on this and I say, how do we get out to peers too to understand how they can help if they have a friend who's struggling with an eating disorder, and where they go. And I know that you'll be working on that here, and I appreciate it. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, wow. I'm really for your support of Anna Weston Act. Really Thank you very much. I think the Senator will get a nice tour with Monica Ostroff about the journey through an eating disorders. As I said, they've done tremendous work. A lot of effort has gone into the display that you're going to see after our panel discussion. We have a great panel. I'm going to introduce all of them to you. The first panelist, our first speaker, is a recovered individual. Shannon Legas is a coach, writer, and founder of Hunger for Happiness, a company dedicated to changing the way women relate to themselves, their bodies, and the world around them. She's also a recovered anorexic, bulimic, and binge eater turned health coach, whose message is one of self-love and self-compassion in the healing and recovery process, whether from an eating disorder or emotional eating. In 2015, Shannon wrote and published her first book, entitled Why Can't You Just Eat? A look inside the mind of anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating disorder. Our second speaker is Peter Lane. Peter Lane is a father. He has a 26-year-old son, John, who lives and works in Chicago. His 23-year-old daughter, Livy, is a college senior and lives with him in Dover, New Hampshire. Peter is a professor at UNH and Associate Dean of UNH's Business School. He will speak about his experience as a father with a daughter who is in recovery, and I found out we had treated Livy many years ago at Cambridge Eating Disorder Center. Our third speaker is Rhys Wyman. Rhys is a registered dietitian with a private practice in Andover, Massachusetts, and Windham, New Hampshire. He's been working with clients with eating disorders for over 15 years, although it feels like a lot longer than that. He is a great team player and collaborates extensively with his clients, therapists, physicians, and other members of their clinical team. He'll speak about the role of nutrition in recovery from eating disorders. Our fourth speaker is Dr. Georgina Garcia. She's the Director of Adolescent Services at Cambridge Eating Disorder Center in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Dr. Garcia has a broad range of experience, including her inpatient pediatric psychiatry consultation services at Boston Children's Hospital, outpatient service in the primary care center at Boston Children's Hospital, and Martha Elliott Health Center, as well as private practice. Dr. Garcia is a graduate of Dartmouth College and the University of Iowa College of Medicine. After receiving her medical degree, she completed her psychiatry training at Tufts New England Medical Center and her child and adolescent psychiatry from Boston Children's Hospital. She'll speak about medical and psychiatric comorbidities and their treatment. I also wanted to talk about Monica Ostroff. She's going to be the moderator of the panel. I'll also be on the panel talking about the psychological treatments and levels of care issues. Monica Ostroff is the director of the Cambridge Eating Disorder Center of New Hampshire. She's a therapist, author, and consultant specializing in the field of eating disorders and substance abuse disorders. Monica is nationally recognized for her contributions to the field of eating disorders and their treatment. With expertise in individual, group, family therapy in both outpatient and hospital settings, Monica has 25 years of experience in the field of eating disorders. Among her credits, Monica is the co-author of Anorexia Nervosa, A Guide to Recovery, and a contributing author to both self-harm behavior and eating disorders and the Thinking Moms Revolution, Autism Beyond the Spectrum. Monica received her BA from Wellesley College and her MSW from Boston College Graduate School of Social Work. I'd like to add that I am delighted and honored that she's providing leadership for our site in Concord. I'm not very, I don't micromanage Cambridge Eating Disorder Center, but I'd really like to know that our patients are taken care of well, and there are good people and dedicated staff that are doing a thorough job and a good job, and I feel very much at ease and have a peace of mind that Monica is in charge of our Cambridge Eating Disorder Center of New Hampshire. So we'll start with Shannon. Shannon, do you want to, all of our panelists will have almost like 10 minutes to tell us about whatever they want to talk about that we had decided. And then after that, we'll open to questions and answers. And then at the end, you have the opportunity to take a tour. And I would really encourage you to do that. I think you'll learn a lot and appreciate how devastating this illness can be and how recovery is possible. We just have to make sure that patients get the right care and that the treatments are available and the access to care is available. Thank you so much.
My name is Shannon Legassi. I'm a recovered anorexic, bulimic, and binge eater. Monica was actually my therapist back in the day, and Reese and I haven't seen each other in a couple of years. That's probably a good thing, but Monica had asked if I would share a little bit about recovery and the process of recovery, what it was like then and what it's like now. We're going to swap out the lights.
Hang on, you're almost there. Try it now.
Can you guys, okay, that works. All right, so Monica had asked if I would share a little bit about what the recovery process was like for me and then what recovery looks like now. So when I took the traditional path of recovery at first, like going to the doctor, going to the therapist.
Okay, now you're going to talk to us.
All right, and that was helpful, but I found it wasn't until I met my friend Jason, and like I credit him a lot for helping me to move past my eating disorder, because he was the first person in my life who ever just sat down with me and just totally loved me for who I was and just let me be the way that I was. He wasn't trying to change me. He wasn't trying to make my thoughts go away. He would just sit there and listen, and I'd be like, this is what my head is telling me right now, and he'd be like, well, that's not true. So like, what is true? And just help me to get back to like really being present with what's real, and getting away from the disordered thoughts. And I think we think recovery is supposed to look a certain way, and it's just like we're supposed to skip down the yellow brick road of recovery and all's good. But everybody has like their own path, and that's what I found in talking with people with eating disorders and like sharing my story and hearing other people's stories, is that everybody has their own story of recovery, and what it looks like for you is going to be different than what it looks like for the person sitting next to you, and you really just have to find what works for you, and not, I think we get stuck in trying to force ourselves to do things, and if it's not working, it's not working, and you just have to find what does work for you, and that's what's going to help you to move forward. And for me, I just took like a really roundabout way of like figuring out who I was and who I am in relation to the world, and coming to terms with myself and my body and with food. And now I would say like I have a normal relationship with food. And the way that I classify like normal relationship is that I don't wake up in the morning thinking about what I ate yesterday, what I'm going to eat today, what I'm going to eat tomorrow, how many calories I've consumed during the day. It's just, I just eat when my body tells me to, and I stop eating when my body tells me to, and I don't worry about how much food is or isn't on my plate. And I never thought that that was like even a possibility, because I remember the process of like refeeding myself and how long that took. And I mean, I titled my book, Why Can't You Just Eat? Because someone was like, well, who are you trying to write for? And I was like, people like my dad, who like would sit there watching me eat a muffin for an hour and a half and be like, why can't you just eat? It's so easy. Just put food in your mouth. And I was like, no, it's actually not that easy. It's like a psychological illness, and it's so much more than just putting food in your mouth and chewing and swallowing. Like, if it was that easy, we'd all be better. But it really was like learning how to understand like where that came from, and that the way that I was dealing with food wasn't about food, and it wasn't about my relationship with my body, it was about everything else that was going on in the world. Like, I didn't have words to express the dysfunctional relationships with family members, the overwhelming anxiety I had about like getting good grades in school and doing the right thing and being the best person that I could possibly be. Like, I put a lot of pressure on myself to be like the best person possible, and it just like totally broke me down. And food was a way of dealing with those stressful emotions, because no one ever taught me how to breathe through pain. Nobody ever taught me that emotions are transient and that they go away after a while, and if you just learn how to ride it out, you'll be okay. Nobody ever taught me like it was okay to be sad, it's okay to be angry, just as much as it's okay to be happy. And I think that those are really important parts of recovery, is just learning how to be with everything that is, and learning how to deal with my emotions in a different way. And that like food was a crutch, and it was a useful crutch for a while, but it's not like, it wasn't the ideal way to deal with my problems. Like, instead I just had to face my problems head on. And something Monica and I were talking about the other day is like, at this point in my life, it doesn't mean that recovery to me doesn't mean that I never have thoughts about like not eating or binging or purging. It doesn't mean that I have a perfect relationship with food or with my body. It's just that when those thoughts do come up, I don't attach to them, and I don't just like go into it and just like follow that path. It's to me more like a reminder, like when the oven dings and you're like, oh, dinner's ready. It's like, oh, something is off in my life, and I need to figure out what that is. Like, I haven't been paying attention to this issue, and when I start thinking like I feel fat, now it's like, okay, fat is just my default mode of feeling uncomfortable. So what am I uncomfortable about? And it's just every day, it's really cool like to think that recovery is just a process of learning more about yourself, and it's not something you have to be the best at, you don't have to be perfect at it. It's just every day you get to learn more and more about who you are and how you respond to things, how you react to things, and getting the opportunity to change the way that you react and change the way that you respond to the world around you. And sometimes you get it right, and sometimes you don't, and life goes on, which is always great. And I guess I also wanted to just like speak to the recovery part because I know there are parents in the audience too. And I know parents are always like, what am I supposed to do? I'm so confused. And my dad's like, why can't you just eat? And I know it's really hard. Because like it's really hard to watch people struggle in general, and you just want to be like, here's a life preserver, catch, save yourself. But people do have to save themselves, and you have to let people come to things on their own term. And I'm a big fan of saying like we all have our own rock bottom, and we don't get to choose what somebody else's rock bottom is. But the best we can do is just love other people and be present for them and be as loving as possible, and not judge it, not try to like fix them, because that's like putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. I just heard that phrase for the first time. I thought it was a great one. But like letting people heal themselves and not trying to fix the problem, but just like loving other people and doing the work on yourself. Because I know in therapy, like every time I went to the hospital, I was like, great. I was like, life is so good. I want to be in the hospital. I love the hospital. I love the people in the hospital. I love that people don't judge me here. And I would go home and like life just fall apart again. Because nobody was ever talking to my family and saying, hey, guess what? So Shannon has this thing. It's called an eating disorder. You can't relate to her like everybody else. Like you have to be cautious of how you talk about food and how you talk about your body. But my family will still make comments about things, and it's just, I think earlier someone was asking me about, Ashley Graham being on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and is that a good move? And I was like, as long as we're talking about our bodies to define beauty, we're not making progress. Like your body is not what makes you beautiful. Your body is not what makes you a good human being. It doesn't define who you are or your value or your worth. It's just a vessel through which you live your life. So it's kind of like the kind of car you drive. Like it doesn't actually tell you anything about who you are as a person. It's just how you get to and from work. So that is what I've got for you guys. I know these guys are going to be awesome. Look forward to hearing from them, and I guess we'll be doing Q&A after.
Thank you, Shannon, and I want to congratulate you on everything you've accomplished. I've got some sense of what that is like, just through our family experience. I think very positively, a bunch of my comments are going to mirror what you just heard from Sharon from the parent side, and I think that's a good thing. So a little bit of context. In 2003, my family moved from Scottsdale, Arizona to Dover, New Hampshire to be closer to family, aging parents, etc. And I was married at the time, and my wife and I knew there'd be some bumps in the road for the transitions. We had no idea how big some of those bumps would be. About a year later, November of 2004, I was cleaning up some malware on my wife's laptop. And in the browser history, I noticed all these links to websites that seemed to have something to do with American Idol. Now that was not my wife's thing, but my daughter, Livy, who was 12 at the time, was very much into it. The show was new, was hot. It was Kelly Clarkson's year. And so I checked out some of the links. And some of the links were fan sites. But some of the links went to eating disorder websites. And that's how we discovered that there were issues going on with our daughter that we were totally clueless to. So that was the start of what's been an 11-year journey. I'll let you know up front, Libby has made great progress in recovery. She's not quite to where Shannon is, but she's getting close. She's heading in that direction. So what I wanted to do today is talk really to the parents in the room and share with you 7 insights that I've figured out the hard way that I wish someone had shared with me when I started the journey. And I'll tell you right now, it's been a long journey. It's had its ups and downs. There's been challenges, there's been heartaches. There's also been successes and joy. There's been a lot of self-discovery for me as well as my daughter. And through it all, I think we've gotten much closer and we've got a pretty special relationship. So, first insight. There is no simple answer to the question, why did this happen? It's something that will go through your mind. It's something that will go through your relatives' minds. As those of you who are in this room, most of you know, there's a lot of complex reasons about why this happens. There is no simple explanation. So for me, part of learning how to parent somebody on this journey is realizing that I had to get comfortable with ambiguity and uncertainty. You know, there's not going to be a simple answer to the muffin question and things like that. And you've just got to accept the fact that your child is doing the best he or she can and not look for that one answer. But you also have to help some of your relatives on how to do that. And my mom loves Livy to death. When Liv was doing some intensive outpatient work at the Klarman Center at McLean's, she was actually living with my mom and sister. But it's taken me about a decade to get my mom to stop asking me on at least a monthly basis, but why? So, you know, there is no simple reason. You got to handle the uncertainty and the ambiguity. Two, the goal is recovery, not a cure. There is no silver bullet, there is no cure. To me, the analogy I find that helps people understand is like someone having a substance or drug addiction. The best you hope for is that each and every day your child wakes up and makes decisions to live a healthy life. To, when those triggers come up, to be able to realize what they mean and deal with the underlying causes. And there'll be good days and bad days. If your child is suddenly under stress or gets some really unexpected bad news, it can knock them off their healthy track. And I'll tell you right now, it is going to happen from time to time. And the question is, how do you respond to that to help them get back on? The key is to be around, to be supportive, gentle coaching, not angry, not frustrated, and definitely not disappointed. Because I'll tell you right now, when they fall off the healthy track, that kid is more disappointed in themselves than you could ever make them feel. Third, and again, this is a point that Shannon brought up, you can't fix your kids. You can only coach them and support them. You know, this needs to be a process they drive. This needs to be a process that goes at their own pace, where they find their own path. And this issue, I think, is particularly hard for us guys. And you know, the women in the room will probably identify with this. If you mention you've got a problem to guys, what's the first thing they do? They put on their Mr. Fix-It hat. They don't want to let you get it off your chest. Damn it, they're going to fix the problem for you, and they're going to tell you how to get it done. And so with something like this, with an eating disorder, you know, you really got to sit back and let go and admit you've got no control. You can help, you can assist, you can support, you can give some gently coached advice, but you can't drive the process. Fourth, family dynamics often play a role, but your child's eating disorder is not your fault. Okay? These happen for a variety of reasons. The family context often plays a role. That's why residential programs typically include family therapy as part of the treatment. But you've got to give yourself credit. Even as you learn about things and realize you may have never done things in the past that, in retrospect, didn't help the situation, remember you were parenting the best you knew how with the information you had at hand. No one could ask anymore. So don't beat yourself up about the past. You know, and this was something that took me a while to figure out. Shannon talked about wanting to be the perfect kid. I feel driven to try to be the perfect dad. Why couldn't I have seen this? You know, hindsight's 20/20. Just keep in mind, you know, you're doing the best you could at the time. What do you do differently now? And I said don't blame yourself about this. Would you blame yourself if your kid suddenly came down with cancer? Probably not. Then why are you to blame it if your kid develops an eating disorder? Fifth, be there for your child, but be there on their own terms. They're not going to always want you to be buddy-buddy with them. They definitely don't want you to be hovering around them. There'll be times when, as they're wrestling with all these confusing, challenging things, that they're going to be aloof, they're going to be withdrawn, they're going to be sullen, they're going to be angry. Don't take it personally. And keep in mind, if they're teenagers, a bunch of this has nothing to do with their eating disorder. So, factor that in too. So the way I've tried to approach it is to be around and accessible without being hovering. And sometimes your kid can't reach out to you and tell you they appreciate you being there verbally, but they can appear on the couch beside you unexpectedly. They can lean over and give you a little shoulder bump on the way by. Take what can be offered and appreciate it. 6, develop your own support network. You can't be there for your child if you're not taking care of yourself. This is a long journey, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. You've got to take care of yourself emotionally and psychologically. You need people to talk to. You need some people you can just vent to. But you also need some people you can talk things through with who are going to be good enough friends to hold up a mirror when you might not want to look in it. For me, the way that played out was there was a number of other things going on in our family, divorce, my dad was dying. So I wound up in a men's group that a psychologist was running. And these guys literally kept me sane. They also helped me on my own voyage of self-reflection and helped me think through my roles as a father, a brother, a son, a friend, and how was I going to manage all this going forward. And the last point I want to make is remember to live your own life. Your child's eating disorder is a part of your life, but you don't help you or your kid by making it the sole focus of your life. This is a long process. You need to do things for yourself. You can't become a martyr to it, because if you do, you don't have the emotional resilience when things go off the rail and your kid needs you. So make sure you do things that are emotionally rewarding for yourself. Be there to support your kid, but don't totally sacrifice your personal goals, because you need to model healthy living for your kid as well as having a life for yourself. It's been a journey I never would have volunteered for or volunteered my daughter for, but I'll be honest, I've grown from it, and I think our relationship has strengthened from it, and I'm so proud of the progress my daughter's made. Thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm Reese Wyman. I'm a registered dietitian, and I'm just going to talk about the role of a dietitian in the treatment of eating disorders. And thank you all for being here. And Monica, thanks for the invitation. You didn't have to do all this for me. I would have come up anyway.
That's the only way I could get you.
I know, really, I haven't been here. It's great. Hey, so also to start, I'd actually like to acknowledge that private pay insurance didn't always value what dietitians did. There are a few other dietitians here, Hillary Warner and Susan Engel at least, and maybe others. But over the years, they've really come to recognize the dietitian's role in and as a contributor to a team approach to eating disorder recovery. And usually that kind of, as a small group, would include the primary care physician or a physician who's eating disorder savvy, a therapist, and a dietitian. And then it could be extended to having a psychiatrist as well as a family therapist involved. And so the treatment team can be quite expansive over time, but I'm really grateful that dietitians have been recognized as being part of that, and there's frequently coverage for that, which there didn't used to be, so this is good. So let's see, as far as what the dietitian's role is, there are many. Probably the primary ones are to create a comfortable, non-judgmental environment for people to talk about food and to reestablish that healthy relationship with food that Shannon was talking about. For me, one of my mantras is kind of like, adequate fuel first. It's kind of the primary thing, is to make sure that people are getting enough nutrition so that their body can work okay. If if they're undernourished so that they can maybe actually start to think better, if they're taking medications so that their medicines actually work. I mean, it's all kinds of things that can happen in malnutrition. And so, so a dietitian can be the person to really push somebody on that, and hopefully in a non-judgmental way. What we also do, though, in an outpatient setting is individualized care. So everyone is treated as an individual, and everyone has different kind of struggles at home or around food or what it is, and so we get to kind of individualize that. One of the things where dietitians might differ from, we're paid on the medical health side of things, and the mental health folks kind of shy away from diagnoses, and dietitians, I'm kind of giggling because we always like to know exactly what we're dealing with, or at least I feel like I do. Because like in dietetics, if let's say somebody has a kidney stone, if you can capture the kidney stone and analyze it and figure out what it's made out of, there's a diet for it, usually. But there's a different diet for different ones. Same thing with cholesterol. If somebody has high triglycerides compared to like just straight up high LDL or something, there are different diets for that. And so if we know what we're dealing with, I always love it because there can be a unique approach to treating it, which I think that, you know, Monica, you and your folks might not always love it. I'm like, well, what am I looking at here? But it's really helpful. Let's see. One of the things I'm grateful for programs like CEDC is that the clients who finally, you know, have a diagnosis of an eating disorder and are getting treated start to develop coping skills. And in my realm as a dietitian, I think that what I try to do is understand what those coping skills are, so that then we can help to reinforce the use of them. I think that when we're talking about eating disorders, eating can be the greatest source of anxiety, either before and after eating. And so if we can help people to kind of use their skills, it's really, really effective, or it can be effective. And so some of the things that folks here do, and I think folks, you know, all over when we talk about treating eating disorders, is help people to identify and label what they're feeling. And I think, Shannon, you kind of talked about that as far as like, if I know why, you know, like maybe I'm really anxious about school or something else, but it all of a sudden comes into a food thought instead. And so the dietitian can kind of say, like, when you're really worried about food, can you, like, you know, what skills can you use? And of course, folks who are new to this are so used to having a default coping skill of restriction or purging or anything, that they don't think about using the other ones. They're awkward and clunky and they don't work as well at first. But by building a safe, comfortable relationship, again, we can really get somewhere. So once adequate nutrition is established, some things that a dietitian can do, or we help people to work on risky food choices, food challenges, eating out, and you know, like a lot of times people eventually get back to enjoying things in their lives. So maybe they are athletes, and you know, how do they eat for a sports event, before a sports event, during their training, for a vacation, all kinds of things. And dietitians really try to look at the whole feeding relationship and what's coming up next. Kind of like, I think a lot of times you guys might do like a planning for the weekend, or how did that go? We're doing that, you know, around food and stuff too, so it's helpful. The other important thing for a dietitian to do probably is to coordinate care, especially with a therapist, to know when it's safe to challenge somebody with food choices, what might be the first or most comfortable challenge, and to kind of create a successful and kind of really positive experience for somebody who's struggling with an eating disorder. What we do is we look at the meal and snack patterns, the habits, try to balance, you know, healthy nutrition with food challenges, and a lot of times we even look at the whole feeding relationship, or what is a family doing, when are they eating, do they ever have family meals, and sometimes we need to challenge families to do things differently, and it's not just the client as much as the whole kind of family. Eventually we will taper out visits and remain available to clients as they recover. And to me, I guess I want to go back to those coping skills, that those are the most kind of effective things, I think, if we can get clients to actually use different coping skills and to know when to plug them in. It's like having a toolbox and really being able to, kind of recognize what it is and use it sooner, and so they don't have to fix a problem with a sledgehammer when they just need a screwdriver or something like that. So as an analogy. All right, well, thank you guys very much.
Hi, so I'm Georgina Garcia. I just first wanted to say thank you very much to Dr. Ebrahimi and the group for letting me join. I kind of feel like an interloper here. But I wanted to say that what an amazing opportunity this is. This is an ability to everyone to get together and discuss eating disorders. And when I went back into my books and I